New details on the absence of Alexa Bliss and the Wyatt Six heading into WrestleMania 41. Konosuke Takeshita advances to the next round of the Men's Owen Hart Foundation Cup Tournament on Collision. Athena and Jamie Hayter advance in the Women's Owen Hart Cup on Collision. Jon Moxley is named as an interim AEW World Trios Champion on Collision after Pac suffered an injury on AEW Dynamite. FTR explained why they attacked Cope at AEW Dynasty, with Nigel McGuinness saving Tony Schiavone from a spike piledriver from the former AEW World Tag Team Champions. Tony Khan announces a brand new championship in Ring of Honor. Rich Swann is officially gone from TNA Wrestling. WWE officials reportedly were happy with the Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton segment on Smackdown, and several matches and segments are confirmed for AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Before we get into today's stories, a reminder to subscribe, join the ever-expanding WNU, that being the Wrestle News universe. We are close to just over 200 subscribers to go until 21,000. If you haven't already, join the ever-expanding WNU in one of the biggest weeks of the professional wrestling calendar. Speaking of which, you can see right there in the sidebar all upcoming watch-alongs for Raws, SmackDown, both nights of WrestleMania, NXT Stand and Deliver. Also, we'll have post shows, and also whilst you're there, you can see all of the perks you get for joining the WN365 roster. All you have to do is click the join button, links in the video description, or you can scan the QR code when it appears on the sidebar. Let's begin talking about Alexa Bliss and the Wyatt Six and their absence from WWE television as we get closer and closer to WWE's biggest premium live event of the year, that being WrestleMania 41. The WrestleMania 41 card now seems to be set in stone, and while WWE fans around the world are eagerly anticipating the company's biggest show of the year, others are asking about the WWE superstars that have not made the final card. Among the missing talent over WrestleMania weekend are the Wyatt Six faction, as well as Alexa Bliss, who only recently made her return to the company after a near 2-year absence at the 2025 Royal Rumble. Sean Ross Sapp was asked about this on Fightful Select, as well as if there are still any plans to have Bliss and the Wyatt Six work together on television due to Bliss's previous work with the late Bray Wyatt. Sapp explained, due to Bo Uncle Howdy Dallas being injured, the group has been kept off TV entirely, as there are creative plans in place for them, but only as a group. Sapp noted that one WWE source told him that the Wyatt Six might have to wait until after WrestleMania to return, as there are too many creative directions to adjust at the time of recording. As for Bliss, Sapp explained that there are still future plans to tie her in to the Wyatt Six at some point in the future, but there were no real plans for her outside of that and was taken off the WrestleMania week schedule. Sapp was unable to confirm exactly when Bliss or the Wyatt Six would be back on television, as there had been not that much information regarding Dallas's injury. The Wyatt Six were last seen on the December 9th, 2024 episode of WWE Monday Night Raw, where they were defeated by The Miz and The Final Testament, with the Authors of Pain, Razor and Akam, being both released from the company in the months following that match. Now let's go on to AEW Collision last night, and the Owen Hart Cup continues for both the men's and women's tournaments. Konosuke Takeshita defeated Brody King in the main event of AEW Collision to advance to the Owen Hart Cup semi-finals. Takeshita, conspicuously without Don Callis at ringside and King cornered by Julia Hart, battled in an intensely physical bout both within and outside the ring. King specifically laid into Takeshita with chops against the guardrail, giving fans in the front row an up-close experience. But back inside the ring, Takeshita fought back and made use of his explosive power to wear his larger opponent down. Takeshita looked to have the match won with a Blue Thunder Bomb, only for King to kick out. But from there, Takeshita maintained much of the control to land a deadlift wheelbarrow slam, followed by a concurrent knee strikes, running to put him down for the count of 3. Takeshita's win in the Owen Hart Cup marks his second major win of the weekend, having previously defended his never openweight championship against Hiroshi Tanahashi at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Windy City Riot on Friday. He will face Will Ospreay in the semi-finals of the tournament during next week's AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough, looking to avenge the loss in their maiden singles bout at Revolution 2024. On the other side of the bracket, Hangman Adam Page is yet to wrestle the wildcard entrant in the tournament to determine who will face Kyle Fletcher in the semi-finals, and will also be doing so during Spring Breakthrough next week. Now, when it comes to the women's side of the Owen Hart Cup tournament, the Owen Hart Cup is in full swing with 2 quarterfinal matches slated for Saturday's episode of AEW Collision. Harley Cameron, Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena, Billy Starks and Jamie Hayter all locked up Saturday for a chance at timeless Toni Storm's AEW Women's World Championship, but by the time the smoke settled in Springfield, only Hayter and Athena found themselves one step closer to the gold. Starks and Hayter began the night's cup festivities with Hayter scaring her opponents off her feet in the opening moments of the match. Starks attempted to regain face by offering her hand to Hayter, only to throw Hayter against the ropes and straight into a kick. Action spilled to the outside as Starks dove off the ring announcer's barrier to nail Hayter with a swanton bomb. Hayter recovered and dominated the match until Starks hit the former AEW Women's World Champion with a resounding suplex. Starks attempted to follow up her daring move with a swanton bomb and a boat driver attempt, but Hayter re-established her dominance with a stalling suplex onto the outside. Both women beat the referee's 10 count, but things unraveled for Starks swiftly as Hayter leveled her with the lariat for the victory. Now, Cameron and Athena's contest wasted no time with both women beginning the match with a series of pin covers and reversals. The two had a mostly back-and-forth match after their initial lockup, with each woman expertly reversing or countering their opponent's offense before long. The fight spilled to the outside quickly, with Athena tossing Cameron with a suplex off of the apron. When action resumed in the ring, Athena had her opponent tied up in a brutal variant of the torture rack submission. Cameron briefly gained an advantage in the match when she plucked a soaring Athena out of the air with a left hand but failed to secure the pin cover. Athena recovered to pick up the victory following a picture-perfect eclipse onto Cameron. After the match, Mercedes Moné appeared via a video package to taunt Athena, calling her future competitor just a speed bump on her track to success. Hayter will now take on Chris Statlander on the upcoming episode of AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough in the Cup semifinals, while Athena will meet current TBS champion Mercedes Moné on the same episode. The winner of those matches will progress to Cup finals, which will be hosted at AEW Double or Nothing Live from Glendale, Arizona on May 25th. The winner of the Cup Finals will earn the right to challenge for the AEW Women's World Championship in July, when AEW hosts All In from Texas's Globe Life Field. Now, there had been a lot of discussion, hadn't there, about what was the future of the AEW World Trios Championships with the Death Riders. Now, Jon Moxley will step in after Pac's injury as the interim Trios Champion for the Death Riders' next title defense, as announced during AEW Collision. Pac had been over 200 days into his second reign with the Trios titles, having won them alongside Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta All In last year, but sustained a legitimate ankle injury during his bout with Swerve Strickland during AEW Dynamite this past week. With the Ops declaring their intent to challenge for the Trios titles within the recent weeks, and Pac unable to defend for the foreseeable, it was announced by Tony Schiavone at the beginning of the show that AEW World Champion Jon Moxley would be stepping in as an interim holder of the Trios titles, teaming with Castagnoli and Yuta against Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata during next week's AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough. Later, during Collision, a video package aired with Castagnoli proclaiming they will continue despite Pac being sidelined, formally accepting the challenge from the Ops. The camera then panned as he handed Pac's Trios belt over to the side, revealing Jon Moxley. Moxley didn't take the title himself, with Marina Shafir instead putting it over her shoulder. Moxley addressed each of Joe and Shibata as the veterans in their team, questioning what they're teaching Hook and promising to provide his own education to him next week. The Ops are undefeated as a trio since February and got a victory over Yuta and Castagnoli in tag team action this past week on AEW Dynamite. Now, for the first time since AEW Dynasty last weekend, FTR explained why they attacked Cope. FTR explained why they attacked Adam Copeland and then tried to attack another legend of wrestling, Tony Schiavone. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, FTR, attacked Cope at AEW Dynasty and opened the April 12th episode of AEW Collision to explain why. Wheeler said the attack wasn't premeditated, but after watching the way that Cope moved backstage, he felt he was only being selfish. Howard followed up by saying he wanted Cope to retire after a long run with rated FTR, but felt Cope was more concerned with reliving his glory days as a singles competitor. They then turned their attention to Tony Schiavone. They called him into the ring, and despite Nigel McGuinness's best pleas, Tony went into the ring and told Howard to his face that he wondered what his daughter was subjected to when she went to school, knowing that her dad had turned on one of his best friends. That led to FTR putting Tony in the pile driver position, at which point Nigel shot up from the announce table and entered the ring. While FTR was jaw-jacking with Nigel, Daniel Garcia came up from behind them and was accidentally shoved to the floor by Cash Wheeler. FTR then hugged Danny, hugged him, and apologized profusely as they left the ring. Now, let's go to Ring of Honor and another championship being added to Tony Khan's promotion. AEW and Ring of Honor owner Tony Khan revealed a new championship after AEW Collision last night, with details emerging on how a first champion will be crowned. Following the April 12th AEW Collision episode and ahead of the Ring of Honor TV taping, Tony Khan appeared in front of the live crowd in Springfield, Massachusetts to make a notable announcement. Khan revealed that a women's version of the Pure Championship will be introduced to Ring of Honor soon. Obviously, you can see the picture of the championship on the screen right there. Per PW Insider, a tournament for this title will kick off at the Supercard of Honor pay-per-view, which is slated to take place on May 2nd. The men's ROH Pure Championship is typically defended under Pure rules. These Pure matches differ from regular matches by limiting the number of rope breaks and adding a focus on grappling. Lee Moriarty currently holds the ROH Pure title, winning the gold from Wheeler Yuta at Death Before Dishonor in July 2024. Now let's go over to TNA Wrestling here, and an update when it comes to Rich Swann. A former TNA World Champion has entered free agency, although it was largely already assumed. Fightful Select's Sean Ross Sapp has learned that Rich Swann's TNA contract has expired, and he is now a free agent. Swann signed a 2-year extension with TNA in late 2022, and it expired at the end of 2024. Fightful have been told there was an additional option year that didn't get picked up. However, he was at the Orlando tapings both days. Swann was last seen in TNA last summer and would voluntarily enter a substance abuse rehab program after a public intoxication arrest. Swann returned to the ring for Pro Wrestling Revolver in October and has maintained a busy independent schedule since then, also competing regularly for GCW. Going over to Friday's edition of SmackDown, there was a stark contrast in Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair's work from week to week. Last week, there was a war of words between the two, and this led to an unscripted, messy situation. Now, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, contrary to some other reporting, it was reiterated to Fightful that much of that was absolutely not scripted, planned, or approved of, and there was heavy editing to digital segments. Ahead of the April 11th SmackDown, WWE filmed an attack angle capitalizing off the controversy. Fightful are told that WWE officials were happy with how Tiffany and Charlotte responded and worked together after the uncomfortable elements last week. The two were involved in a physical altercation on SmackDown as well, which ended up being very stiff. However, based on what Fightful heard, everything ended up okay, and producers and backstage personnel say that things went as planned and was received well. And finally, several matches and segments are confirmed for AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough this coming Wednesday. On the April 12th AEW Saturday Collision, it was announced that Hangman Page's match against the wildcard entrant in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament would take place on the April 16th AEW Dynamite Spring Breakthrough. In other men's tournament action, Konosuke Takeshita battles Will Ospreay. The winner will advance to the finals. Mercedes Moné takes on Athena in a Champions Clash in the women's tournament action. The winner of that match will be the first woman to advance to the finals, which will take place at AEW Double or Nothing. Bishop Korn and Toa Leona also issued a challenge to the Hurt Syndicate's Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin for Wednesday, but nothing was made official. But it's expected the AEW World Tag Team Champions will accept that match. But there you go, guys. The latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As you can see right there, we're getting closer and closer to 21,000. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Click that notification bell. Scan the QR code on screen and join the WN365 roster. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.